Today we'll try to land on a high-G world without crashing too much. Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to Elite Dangerous with Down to Earth Astronomy. Today we're going to land on a high-G world, and I'm going to show you some tips and tricks to how you can do it without crashing your ship too much. So to do this, I have come here to Archnor Planet 3. You can see here this planet has a surface gravity of 6.7 G. We're going to try to land this anaconda with a 7D thruster. So it's unengineered, at least the thruster is, so there's nothing special on anything going on here. Okay, so there's a few things you need to do before you actually begin to approach the planet. You can see I dropped this out of Super Cruise here at an altitude of 1,300, almost 1,400 kilometers, because I need some space, I need some air between me, or some space between me to show you a few tips and tricks before we actually begin to go closer to the planet. Now, first, you need to have your flight assist on and off key bound, and you need to know where it is, because we're going to use that later on. And then secondly, make sure you have all your pips to engines, and I suggest you put the rest to shields. If, in case something bad happens, you approach it a little bit too fast, you can put pips over to shields to increase the shield strength and take some of the damage later, if that happens. But for now, keep all your pips to engines as you approach the planet. The reason why this is important is because if we go outside the ship here, and we take a look around, we can see just hovering here, our maneuvering thrusters is actually firing, and they're firing quite significantly, and they're doing that to counteract the gravity. That means, because it's usually so much thrust to just keep yourself flying or keep yourself stable, you will have less thrust available to maneuver your ship around. Another thing that's important, just as you know that rotation, like pitch and roll, is a lot faster than yawing, the same goes with your maneuvering thrusters. For instance, your maneuvering thrusters upwards or downwards. Oh, wow, look at that. One thrust downwards and we just instantly begin to drop. But your thrusters up and down are a lot stronger than your side-to-side thrusters. So for instance, you can see here right now, just try to get this thing stable again. See, we can slow this thing down. So I'm pointing my nose up to use my rear thrusters to slow me down, because they're a lot more powerful than my maneuvering thrusters. Now we're almost at 0 speed, so that's good. We're gonna put this thing back again. Okay. So as I said, your maneuvering thrusters up and down are a lot more powerful. So notice what happens here when I begin to roll over to the side. See, I begin to drop. Let's do it again. As soon as I roll over, I don't have to roll much. There. See, now I'm beginning to drop because I'm going to go outside again so I can show you what actually happens here. If we move the camera back here a little bit. Here. Now you can see my thrusters here are firing to keep me stable. And as I roll the ship over, I can do that like this, those thrusters will have less and less of an effect. There we go. Gotta put that back again. And the sideways thrusters, which are not as powerful, will take over, and they cannot keep the ship afloat. So whatever you do, when you're maneuvering around the planet, you yaw. I know it's slow, you don't roll and pitch as you're used to when you're flying in space. You yaw everywhere, because if you stop, if you roll over to the side, you're basically just shutting off your engines, and you'll be plummeting towards this planet, and it will be difficult for you to recover. And to make matters even worse, and to make this even more difficult for myself, the power distributor on this ship is so underpowered. There we go, 1D, that this ship can actually not boost. So that's gonna make this even more interesting. See, I forgot to put my thrusters back, so we're actually dropping pretty quickly right now towards the planet. You can see here we're running at 500. This anaconda cannot go this far. That's because we're dropping right now. I didn't even notice that I put my thrusters in reverse. It was probably from when we're testing out the camera. So I'm putting my nose up again to get that maximum thrust out of the engines to try and slow me down. But I'm just gonna get this ship under control again, and then we're gonna try and move a little bit closer to the planet. Now we got all the basic covered, all the do's and don'ts. So let's get closer to the planet. Okay, so now we are back in Super Cruise and we're approaching the planet. Now, here's important to note this bar that you have out to your right. That indicates your downwards velocity. You can see that right now it's at 1 bar, and if I go down further down, it's gonna be 2 bars. If I pull my nose up, this is gonna go positive because I'm now moving away from the planet. So that's your indicator of how quickly you're going down. You need to use this to adjust your approach to the planet. Keep this this descent at around between 15 and 20 degrees. I feel that's a good point. It's easy to control here. We see we're not going down too fast. Two bars of downward velocity, and we can very easily just pull back, and we still have the ship under control. So don't go down too steep. This is very flat trajectory compared to what you would normally do on the lower G worlds, but you don't have a lot of thrust authority on your ship, so keep it shallow as you come into the planet. When you see we're now coming down below the 250 kilometer mark very soon, and in not too long we're probably going to go into glide. And when you go into glide, I go into a very shallow glide as well. Keep that between 10 and 5 kilometers as you glide there. And then eventually you will drop out, and this should be very close to the surface. So I'm just going to do that, and you guys can join me once we are a little bit closer again. Just another point, we're here, as you can see, in glide. As I said, keep it between the 5 and the 10 kilometers. But notice here that my downwards velocity indicator here, my vertical velocity indicator here at the right, is all the way in the red. That's okay as long as you're in glide. That will change as soon as you drop out of glide, so just don't panic if that happens. You still have your ship under control. Just keep it at a shallow glide between the 5 and the 10 degrees of downwards angle. And then just wait. We should drop out of our glide pretty soon. Now we see we just passed below 10 kilometers. So we're gonna be ready here as soon as we drop out to make sure that we kill our thrusters. There we go. Kill our thrusters, and there you go. Okay. So now we're just gonna let the ship slow down, because again we're using a lot of our maneuvering thrusters right now to just keep this ship flying. And we're just gonna try to see if we can get the ship slowed down so we're actually sitting still. Now, as we talked about earlier, do not roll this thing. And as you also saw, when I use my downwards thrust, you're essentially shutting off your thrusters underneath, and you're thrusting downwards, and that's gonna be too much. Your ship cannot handle that. If I did that right now, I would crash into the surface, and I might be able to survive him if I'm lucky, but that's not how we want to do it. And again, we don't want to, just as we didn't want to roll our ship, we don't want to pitch it too much, because we don't really have, we can pitch it upwards, but don't pitch it downwards too much, because the forward thrusters is not that powerful. Our rear thrusters are good, so you can pull back on the stick. If you feel like you're losing control, just pull back, point the ship straight up. That's the best position where you're going to slow down the fastest. So if you get into trouble, you pull back all the way up like that. And if your ship can boost, you boost, and you just keep full throttle in that direction. As you can see here, as long as we're along this axis, it's good. As we put the nose down, we're going to get into trouble. Okay, so we're going to put this back at 0. And we're going to begin to fly forward. Don't go beyond this 75% mark you can see here. When you do that, that's when you begin to take thrust away from your maneuvering thrusters. And as we talked about, we need those. Okay. So I will slowly begin here again. Everything with about approaching a high G world is slow. So keep the throttle at around the 75%. And we're going to go down at an angle between 5 to 10 degrees. You can maybe go down to approaching 50. But as you get closer to the surface, get it closer and closer to 0. As long as you feel like you have your ship under control. And then be careful with the gravity. It will surprise you. So I'm just going to keep it at this angle for now, until we are a little bit closer to the surface. Okay, we're coming in at final approach here. Again, you can also, as you come in, as you can see here, I took the nose a little bit too far down compared to what I would normally do. But there was to highlight here, you can see on my thrust here, on my throttle, that even though I'm keeping it here, I'm actually going faster. That's because, of course, the gravity is pulling me down. If your total speed, as you can see here on next to your radar, goes above the normal speed that a ship can go, that's probably because you're going too fast then. So you should pull up again. to gain a little bit of control over your ship and to reduce that downward descending velocity. So again, I'm going to pull back so I get the ship under control, and then I'm going to put my nose down again to begin to approach the planet again very, very slowly. Again, as we talked about, everything with approaching a planet is of this magnitude, with a gravity of this magnitude, is very, very slow. Again, keep it here above 10 degrees. We're very close to the surface now. We're only 750 meters up. And even though it is tempting just to go full throttle and go closer, take it slow. Again, I cannot stress how important it is that you do this slowly. Again, I'm just gonna keep approaching. We're actually pretty close now. And as soon as I found a suitable spot for landing, we're gonna try to see if we can put this thing down. Okay, we're now down. We're actually very close to the surface, so I'm gonna begin to slow us down. So we're gonna pull this up to around 0%. Sorry, I was just getting a little bit too close there, too close for comfort. And I'm gonna begin to slow the ship down to a halt here. So we're gonna go with very low thrust here. Use my yaw here to move around. There's a flat field right over here. I'm gonna try to see if I can land on that. Okay, so now we are around 50 kilometers up, and I think this is a good time to deploy our landing gear. So again, if I use my downward thrust, the ship will just drop the last 60 meters, and we could possibly do that. Just drop us down, all pips to shield, and we would be fine. The ship would survive, but we could do this a little bit more gracefully. Now, what I want to test here is if you, instead of just thrusting, just turn flight assist on and then off again, off and then on again very quickly. So let's do that. So see that we just dropped about 30 meters, and it was a lot more controllable than if we were thrusting downwards. So now we are pretty close to the surface actually, and we could maybe actually begin just to put some pips away from our engines. See if that's enough to pull us down. Okay, it's not right now. So we can do the same thing again. We're just gonna pulse our flight assist.
Flight assist on.
And now we are actually touching the surface. And we just need to get this thing properly aligned. There we go. Beautiful landing. Very, I think that's the softest you're gonna get on a planet like this. So again, if I can land an Anaconda with underpowered thrusters, like D-rated thrusters and no boost, you can pretty much land anything. If you're just very careful, do it very slow, and remember, I cannot stress this enough, take it slow, don't roll over to the side, keep the bottom of your ship pointing down, and don't use your downwards maneuvering thrusters. That's pretty much the important part to take away from this. So again, I really hope you found this video useful. If you did, give it a like down below and consider subscribing to the channel. And until next time, I will see you guys in space.